All right, Nick. Hey, you got some evil glaring eyes because you're
All right.
continuing, which is pretty exciting. Makes me feel like we need to have this talk and
Yeah, we need to talk about the blue in my eyes.
the blue in your eyes. So, yeah, man, we're kind of recording stuff for our church here, and I wanted to start off with just discussing how people are like expressing their fears. And so I was just going to give two little experiences I had, or one is more general. I think a lot of people that I know and I observe in our church and our community are like trying to like make sure that there is nothing that they do that is wrong at all. Like, and I think, which is obviously not the worst thing. Maybe it's just an impossible thing to try to say like, I want to make sure I don't make any mistakes and endanger others. But I wonder how much it is like endanger me. And then I had a conversation the other day with somebody who was like, we need to make money, because I'm like in the business world, right? And this is somebody who I wouldn't put him in kind of like the Trump camp of like, it wasn't that. It was a small business, not a believer. It was just like, we need to make money. Like whatever we can do to make money, we have to. If like grandpas need to die so that we can get back to making money, and this was said. That's the price we have to pay. Like there's no way around it. We're not gonna. We have to quit worrying about saving a few lives. Like if our whole economy tanks,
Right. Wow.
that's worse. And I thought, ooh, like that was uncomfortable. But I think people are in that boat.
Yeah.
And in both of those situations, I thought, man, there's a real fear. One is the fear of like, if I don't have money, life isn't worth living, or something.
Right.
And then the other one is a fear of somehow making a mistake or somehow being wrong or hurting somebody. Anyway, those are two I've seen. How about you?
I've seen a lot of different things actually. I think right now people are. I think they are scared, even if they're just not admitting it. Maybe I don't know. Your entire world, at least my entire world, has shifted, and I don't feel like I'm scared of anything, but I do feel like I've got some responsibilities.
Mm-hmm.
So that can elicit a lot of different reactions. And so I think right now we have people lashing out every once in a while over very small things, and it just kind of like bubbles out really, really quickly. And so that's something. I was actually just on a phone call with a lady from our neighborhood named Marge, who I'm going to go get some groceries for.
Yeah.
And she was insistent that I was somehow going to charge her, and just like very untrusting, and like even though I'm doing this thing, she wouldn't believe me.
Yeah.
At the very end, and then she was like, "Oh, you're a nice person." I was like, "I'm not trying to scam you, Marge." Also, I just like
she's afraid that somebody can't have a pure motive. Or
right. Yeah. And so she thought she was wondering how I was going to actually charge her extra for getting her groceries, even though I was trying to be very clear that I want to do this for free. So I think we're having that. I think as well, there's just a lot of disassociation happening. Like there's a ton of that. And we kind of talked about that earlier with what we do when we are scared with alcohol and addiction and video games and shows. And so I think we're having that. I've also noticed some rebellion going on. Where people are trying to find like, how do I work this and still do what I want to do and not get in trouble for it or be seen bad for doing that.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Personally, in my life, I'm like, man, how do I keep the salon up and going? That's a thing, and luckily, we've got some great workers and we're trying to do things, but no matter what, we're not going to have the income and we still have bills. So that's a big fear of mine. I'm also thinking a lot about those who naturally have anxiety and depression, and you should not be isolated in those moments. I mean, not for long periods of times, like weeks. There's a reason why isolation is used as punishment and discipline in our penal system. So, I've been like, there's some worry for me over those things. And so I guess the question is like, what do you do with this? Like,
Right.
carrying weight. And I think that's something that we should probably discuss.
Yeah, I think that the scripture that always comes to mind for me, in when anything, even just your phrasing right there, carrying weight, is when Peter says, casting, that you should cast your anxieties on Christ because he cares for you. And that's, not necessarily in the context of a pandemic, but I don't think it excludes that context. I think he's talking about how the enemy of your soul is pursuing you like a roaring lion, right? And I think that especially happens when your fears are exposed. Your enemy knows what you're afraid of and is going to attack you when you're weak. Abby and I have been watching this Netflix show because I'm trying to get us to watch some educational stuff, since there's so much opportunity for TV. But it's showing like animals hunting at night, and it's the familiar scene that the lion takes off after the wildebeest, and one of them's slow and out of sorts, and the lion catches the one that's weak and not ready, but also does that by getting the whole herd to panic.
Right.
And so when you hear that, what Peter said about how lions hunt, you go, that's how they do it. Everybody panics, and then they look for the one that's weak and lagging behind and disconnected, right?
Right.
And they get them. And I'm sure Peter had a little bit of a clue about that. And then but he doesn't say that the best thing to do is fight the devil and, get all the words right and get all the prayers right. He says, cast your anxieties on Jesus because he cares for you.
Right.
And
I think there's definitely something in that, and in a very practical way of doing that and recognizing, like, he gave you community for a purpose.
Yeah.
So, Paul's saying, man, you need to bear one another's burdens. And I think a very easy practical means of saying, like, I'm going to give this to Christ. I'm freaking out. Here's what I'm giving to Christ. This is my burden. Then I need to follow up and say, I need people to pray for me. I need people to talk to about this. I need to not feel like I am a burden, but I'm one who is burdened.
Yeah. I think that's just as we're talking, I'm thinking about the practicality of just offering your burdens to Christ. And I think that when you think of like that image I gave of the herd running and scared, I think that when we recognize Christ's sufficiency to bear our fears, we don't react out of as much fear, and therefore we are more calm, able to follow Jesus, able to resist temptation. And I don't want to act like I know exactly how to put burdens on Jesus. All I've really figured out is that I've learned to feel what burdens me.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm learning that when I feel those feelings of burden and I can say, I'm feeling burdened, that I can just ask God to remind me that he is actually in control of this. To sometimes I even imagine myself like taking the thing, like I'll, like one burden for me is I don't want to fail at stuff. And so like I'm feeling like, oh, this could mean I'm going to fail. So I'll just imagine myself taking that idea and just saying, God, can I hand this off to you and trust you with my, whether or not I fail and what the repercussions of that might be? And will you just hold on to that for me? And it's a weird thing to do, but when you imagine like Christ actually going, yes, I will, and I do, and that's what I've already been doing. And you can kind of just imagine yourself going like, so it's not in my control anymore. I've given that control over. That's like a thought process I actually go through sometimes, and usually over and over. It's not like a one-time, one and done.
Yeah.
How do you manage that? Like when you have to,
deal with life. Yeah. So there's actually two things that I try to make a pretty common practice. The first is literally just talking to God about the problem. Like, hey, this is going on, or like this person's frustrating me, or what about the finances? And just talking very open and honestly to God about it. It's just prayer. But I found that there's different places that help me focus in that. So even this morning, like if when I take a shower, like that's a good place for me just to talk before God and be like, hey, one, I don't look like I'm a crazy person because nobody else is around. So that's nice. But it's just very like, there's water running, it's comfortable, it's warm water. There's something about the steam. It's just a good place for me to focus and talk. But when I feel really, really overwhelmed, I've made a practice of like visualizing the issue and then like I'm giving it to Christ, and the white light of Christ's holiness is taking it. And so that visualization helps me understand and helps me to continuously give God those. And I found like, if I can just say, okay, God, here's the problem. Can you take it? And like, I can know it, but I have a hard time believing it. And so visualizing it actually happening really, really helps me believe it, which I know seems like it's a little weird thing, but.
Sounds like it's something both of us we've never talked about this before, but that's something we've both learned to do. Huh?
Yeah. And I think, when I first started doing it, I was like, oh, am I doing some weird mystical voodoo here? Like, is this okay? And honestly, like we have all these images given to us in scripture of Christ being the light that overtakes the darkness, and the fears that I feel crushed by, like that's darkness, man. And yes, you should fear the Lord. That's the beginning of all wisdom, but then Satan's going to come and try to squash you with some serious fears and doubts right now.
Well, even the scriptures we're talking about use real life scenarios. I mean, we know that Satan's not a lion, running around in a field, but they're analogies, right? It's saying like these things that you can observe and experience, this is what it is like in spiritual places. And so similarly, to cast your anxieties on Christ, something like that is, it's saying in spiritual ways, that is how it works. So it's okay to visualize it. So I would wonder if anybody could take something that they understand, like say you're in business and you can sit down with your boss and say, can you handle this, please? Because this is above my pay grade. And your boss saying, yeah, I'll do it. Don't worry about it. I'll take care of it. Or if you're in, for goodness sakes, like, fast food and a customer's up front and they're furious at you and there's a policy that you can't do anything about, and you can go, I'll get my manager. Right. Or, those are like work metaphors, but you could imagine that with like a parent who, could actually step in and do something that you can't do, or a friend of yours who always has confidence and knows what to say when you don't know what to say. Like, so then imagine God as the greater version of that person.
Right. Well, and there's like, that is what I imagine when I read the verse, like humble yourself before the Lord.
Right.
Recognizing I can't do anything.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not capable. So I'm going to recognize my actual position and then, duck beneath the wing of God here and let him handle it.
And interestingly, in all those scenarios, to cast your cares on somebody else is humbling, because it means I can't handle this.
Right. And that's
so
okay. I think the big reality is right now people are realizing very more pointedly that they have no control
Yeah.
over like virtually anything. I mean, you can I can't even control my emotions right now. And so, sometimes I'm upset by something and I don't know why, or I'm worried about something and like those things just seem to start coming. And then we look around at the economy or you look at viruses and you think, man, I actually don't have control. And that's a good thing to know because you can know someone who does. And that's huge.
Yep, and it's interesting how even our longing for that control, if you were to take C.S. Lewis's line of thought, it we wish there was such control because there is. It's not a ridiculous longing. Like we can't find it. We're grasping for it. We wish it existed, and I think what the Bible's teaching us is that there is someone who has that level of control
Right.
that you can actually trust in. Now, do you comprehend that completely? Can you see it all the time? No, but it exists, and your longing for it proves it. Just Lewis's thing would be, you're thirsty because water exists. You're you're not unreasonable. You thirst for things that actually exist. You're hungry because food exists. You want someone to be in control because someone is.
Right.
Now that doesn't solve all your problems. That you might be angry at the one who's in control, and that's okay. That you can grapple with that. That's
Right. Yeah.
that's not unreasonable, right? But it
Right.
exists.
Well, the one who's in control if he's in control, he's probably not submitting himself to you.
Right.
So
It's frustrating.
yeah, God's going to do things you don't like. And maybe this is one of them. Maybe we're in a stage where you're like, God, I don't understand and I don't like what you've done here or what
Yeah.
you've allowed here. And, but in that moment, at least you're connecting with God, even if you're upset, like
Yeah.
connect with him and tell him, dude, I'm upset with you about this.
Real relationships are ones in which you can be upset with someone, right? And
Yeah,
so
you can be
to have
known.
a real relationship with God, you kind of need that. And acknowledging that is good. It's not lack of faith. It's actually exercising faith.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I think there is this posture that you feel pressure to always be holy before God. And like that when I say holy, that you always do what, like you were saying, what is right. I have the right emotion, I have the right prayer, I have the right whatever.
Yeah.
Instead of realizing like you've been made holy in Christ, and now you need to express who you are. Stop trying to be so holy, but be what God made you.
Yeah. Well, I think that was good, Nick. Thanks for hanging out. And
Yeah.
people of the church, comment below, ask us any questions. If you have any things you want us to talk about in these little or 2-3 times a week, we're going to have these little conversations and share them with you all. So anything you want us to talk about, send it on over and we'll do that.
Yeah. And if you need to talk with somebody about some of the things that you're experiencing or fears that you're having, feel free to reach out and we'd love to talk. Don't have a lot else going on right now.
That's true. You could take either one of our names, Andy or Nick, and put it at the front of our website, missionchurchtucson.com. Andy at Nick at missionchurchtucson.com, and email us, and then we can, do a cool Zoom call with you or a phone call or whatever.
Just communicate. We're going to communicate in various ways.
We're down. All right. See you
All right.
later.